Hi there, I'm back for Chapter 18, Fairies versus Witches. Once the battery in Bree's cell phone died, Connor and his friends had no way of tracking the time. They felt like they had been trapped in the candy cane cage for days, but whether it was due to the time alteration or their anxiety was anyone's guess. The escapees they'd met under the Bethesda Terrace and the captives in the other cages all sat silently. They watched the horrible events around them as if they were trapped in a nightmare they couldn't wake from. Goldilocks hadn't sat down once since they were put inside the cage. Her eyes never left Hero as he bounced around in the baby Bjorn attached to Rat Mary. Eventually, the infant became hungry and started to cry. Instead of giving him back to his mother, Rat Mary tried feeding him a bottle of bright green elixir, a potion Connor and his friends didn't recognize. Hero smelled the liquid and wisely refused it. "Attaboy," Goldilocks whispered. After the ovens were filled to capacity with baking gingerbread soldiers, the witches gave the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts of America a new task. All the cauldrons and trays were moved to the side of the great lawn and replaced with piles of candy. The witches gave the scouts welding tools and ordered them to make weapons out of the sweets. The children made candy cane swords, lollipop axes, licorice whips, candy apple ball and chains, and gummy bear nunchucks. The scouts piled their finished creations into the center of the lawn, and the arsenal grew a foot taller with every passing hour. To say the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts were exhausted was an understatement. It was a miracle they were still conscious. The children had been working non-stop since before Connor and his friends had even arrived at the witches' base. Many of the scouts started nodding off as they made their candy weapons, but they would quickly sit up before one of the witches could punish them. Although Connor's adrenaline kept him alert, watching the tired scouts put him in touch with his own fatigue. He leaned his head against the bars of the candy cane cage and, against his will, fell into a deep, deep sleep. Connor dreamed he was standing in his old neighborhood in front of his old house. It wasn't the boxy rental house the twins had moved into after their father died, but the house that their family lived in while he was still alive. It was painted blue with white trim and had so many windows the house looked like it was wearing a pleasant smile. The front yard was groomed to perfection, and there was a large oak tree the twins loved climbing when they were little. Oblivious to the horrors of his waking life, Connor smiled at the lovely sight of his former home. "I must be stressed about something," he said to himself. "I only dream of this house when I'm upset." Connor walked up to the winding path through his mother's rose garden and entered the house through the front door. He expected to step into a cozy living room with tufted sofas, a small white piano, and all the other furniture they had to sell when they moved. But the front of their old house was barely recognizable because the entire room was covered in papers. Handwritten notes were taped to the walls, pinned to the sofas, and spread across the floor and all the surfaces. Not an inch of the living room was visible. "Well, that's odd," Connor said. "I must have eaten something funky right before bed to be dreaming this. I wonder what it's supposed to symbolize." The handwriting was the same on all the notes and looked very familiar, but it wasn't his own. Connor pulled one off the wall and read it. "Connor, I've been trying to contact you for days, but we're never asleep at the same time. If things escalate to what I'm afraid of, then I know you'll be dreaming about our old house eventually. You always do when you're troubled. Please forgive the mess I've made in your subconscious, but it's very important I get this message to you. This won't be easy to read, but please hear me out. As you know by now, I've been cursed, probably with the most powerful curse that's ever been created. It's turned me into an angry, vengeful, and miserable person. It's as if the witches have transformed me into Esmea, and it makes me wonder if they were the ones behind her undoing all along. Unlike the enchantress, the witches have found a way to keep me entirely in their control, and that's what worries me the most. They forced me to do so many terrible things already, but I'll never be able to forgive myself if I harm someone I love. So I'm begging you, don't give the witches the chance. You can't stop the curse, but you can prevent me from doing the unthinkable by stopping me. I understand that what I'm asking is a burden no brother should ever be asked to bear, but you're the only person I can trust to get it done. You've seen the magic I'm capable of when I'm upset. If the witches unleash it, the other world could be destroyed. That's why you and you alone must make sure it doesn't happen. By taking my life, you will be saving the lives of millions, and we both know it's a worthy sacrifice. I've had a wonderful life, Connor. The adventures we shared over the years are what dreams are made of. I can't imagine having a better family, better friends, or better memories. That's why I can willingly return to magic without any reservations. I look forward to watching over you and Mom with Dad and Grandma at my side. I love you with all my heart, and am forever proud to be your sister, Alex." Connor knew he was experiencing much more than a dream. He ripped up the note as if it would make the request disappear, but every note in the sitting room was scribbled with the same message. Connor whirled through the house and tore every paper he could get his hands on, but the message rang out loud and clear. Alex was asking Connor to kill her. Even in his sleep, the thought of harming his sister made Connor's heart race and beads of sweat run down his face. Soon he felt 2 pairs of hands on him, shaking him awake. "Connor, wake up," Jack said. "Sorry," Connor gasped and quickly sat up. "How long was I out?" "An hour or 2, Bree said. Then you started going full exorcist on us." "I was having a nightmare, but it wasn't just a nightmare," Connor said. "Alex has been trying to communicate with me in our dreams. She covered our childhood home in letters asking me to kill her. She thinks the only way we can save the other world is by taking her life." "That's terrible," Red said. "Just because someone is dangerous doesn't mean they have to be killed to be stopped." "Think about the evil queen." "Oh, wait, I suppose the mirror thing was worse than death." "Well, think about the enchantress." "Oh, yeah, never mind." "But General Marquis, oops, he really died." "Well, the masked man didn't." "Oh, that's right, he did." "Sorry, I thought there were plenty of examples. You know, maybe Alex has a point." "We're not killing my sister," Connor said. "I refuse to believe there isn't a way to break the curse she's under. Alex's emotions are being affected right now, and she's jumping to conclusions. We'll find a way to help her." "Yes, we will," Goldilocks said confidently. "I know exactly what's going through Alex's mind right now. It wasn't long ago that I was in her shoes. She's feeling scared, embarrassed, and guilty, and she thinks there's no coming back from the place she's at. But luckily for her, she's got us to set her straight." "Oh, it's Goldilocks," Red declared with a snap of her fingers. "She's the example I was looking for. Goldilocks was a lonely, miserable, and ill-tempered thief when we met her. But thanks to my friendship, she's turned her life around and become a social, happy, and balanced woman." Goldilocks sighed. "What can I say? I owe it all to you, Red." "You're quite welcome," Red said. I did for Goldilocks is exactly what we need to do for Alex. If she insists on being killed, then we'll just have to love her to death." Connor and his friends nodded politely and gazed around outside the cage, hoping Red wouldn't come up with any more nonsensical anecdotes. On the west side of the great lawn, they watched Charcoline as she inspected the giant ovens. The gingerbread soldiers had been baking for hours, and Connor had been wondering how much time they needed. Charcoline cackled with delight and rang a large bell. "Your Excellencies, our army is finished," Charcoline announced. The Snow Queen and the Sea Witch stood up from their thrones, and eerie smiles spread across their faces. "Release them from the ovens," the Snow Queen demanded, "and line up the children. They must greet the army they've created." The witches rounded up the boy and Girl Scouts and forced them to stand in groups facing the ovens. Charcoline pulled open each oven door, and smoke filled the air. Like something straight from a horror movie, hundreds of gingerbread soldiers slowly crept out of the smoky ovens like zombies, moaning like the ghosts of tortured souls. They were tall and their bodies were burned, and they were left behind trails of crumbs as they walked. "You must be starving," the Sea Witch hissed. "Come and have a snack and gain your strength before the big battle." The gingerbread soldiers skulked toward the group of scouts. The children tried to step back from the frightening cookies, but none of them could move. They looked down and discovered that Tarantuline had sprayed the grass with her web. The scouts' feet were stuck to the ground. Connor and his friends didn't understand the point of this, but as they watched the gingerbread soldiers approach the children, it all made sense. "They're going to feed the scouts to the gingerbread soldiers," Connor exclaimed. "That's horrible," Red said. "Obscene," Goldilocks said. "We have to do something," Bree said. Connor and his friends jumped to their feet and shook the bars of their candy cane cage, but no matter how hard they shook them, the bars never budged. The boy and Girl Scout started screaming as the gingerbread soldiers crept closer. The demonic cookies opened their wide mouths and revealed their sharp candy corn teeth. "Alex, you've got to help those kids," Connor yelled at her. "The sister I know would never stand by as innocent children were devoured, no matter what kind of curse she was under. Come, you gotta fight this. You've gotta save them." For a brief moment, the expression on his sister's face changed. Alex tightened her brow, clenched her jaw, and made fists with her hands. Connor could tell she was fighting the curse with every fiber of her being. Her glowing eyes started to fade, and her floating hair started to fall, and the shield she was keeping up around the Central Park began to flicker like a dying light bulb until it finally disappeared. "Don't let him distract you," the Snow Queen screeched. "Keep the shield steady." The command reinforced the curse. The expression faded on Alex's face, and her eyes glowed brighter than before. Her hair floated back around her head, and the shield reappeared around Central Park. However, the brief moments she had managed to let the force field down had been long enough for a few familiar characters to sneak through it. A split second before the gingerbread army took their first bite out of the Boy and Girl Scouts, a colorful cavalcade suddenly charged out of the trees. And we're going to stop there, and I'll continue in the next video. I'll see you guys then.